Cobra Kai showrunner schools Hollywood, and the Batman has a 3-hour test screening. We'll talk about that this morning on Midnight's Edge of the Morning. I'm Tom Connors, and with me, as always, is the boss man, Andre.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us this lovely day. Well, to be clear, though, it's lovely where I'm at. I know it's not quite so lovely all over the world, so I hope the weather isn't too much trouble in certain other places.
Yeah, it's that's pretty harsh. So hopefully you all are doing well, and you're
hope everyone taking care of themselves.
And maybe we can take your mind off of things for a couple hours.
Exactly.
And as far as the rest of the world goes too, because it's like all hell's breaking loose. But how are you? We also have
here
with us,
at least the weather is really sunny and bright. It's like the warmest day towards the end of August that I can recall, but I guess it's just extreme weather all over the planet, isn't it?
Yeah, I was kind of quoting South Park the movie there, but yeah. Speaking of South Park the movie, we'll blame Canada, and we brought in Script Doctor this morning.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me today.
The whole world's gone to hell. How are you? I'm super. Thanks for asking. Mr. Tickletrunk sends us a super chat or a super sticker super chat. Yeah. Says snake, doggy, or I get it.
Yeah. I think you get it.
I got it to begin with. And we're going to talk a little bit about Cobra Kai this morning.
What he says in
Cobra Kai
the
person or an eagle fang person?
Exactly.
Eagles don't have fangs.
Exactly. And before that, he also sent a super chat saying Cobra Kai will never die, and you can put a hash brown on it.
Send it to the internet.
Exactly. And while we're on super chats, Crappy Posts also said for €5, Cobra Kai succeeds because it respects the movie's fan base and doesn't insult the fans' intelligence. And we're going to get into that and so much more today. On that note, also says, hi, gents. Hello, everyone. And our good friend and colleague, Mexican Iron Man, says for $19.99. Thank you so much. Great video drop yesterday. Listening in from the road. Great topic. If only all fandoms evolved like Karate Kid to Cobra Kai. Indeed, the world would be a happier fandom place. Hail everyone. Yes, indeed. Hail one and hail all. And Lee Kindler just said they should have went the TV route with Shang-Chi. Could have been the Kung Fu of the MCU. Well, that's obviously what they're trying. I'm actually seeing that movie on Wednesday, so I look forward to sharing my review with all of you. Then we shall see if it's truly a triumph.
Will we get shut down again if you do a live review of it, like we did with Captain Marvel?
Yeah, if we call it like this was no triumph.
It was no triumph.
Yeah, but if it is a triumph, I will of course let everyone know that it is a triumph. I am just somewhat unconvinced that it's going to be.
I don't expect it to be much more than a fun kung fu movie. That's all I expect out of it.
I look forward to seeing the real abomination. That's about it.
Oh, if not, it might be a real abomination.
Yeah.
But I doubt it.
Yeah. And Dash D says, thoughts go to Valiant. He's getting banged by Ida, and not in a good way.
Yeah, hopefully.
Valiant, if you are listening, we're thinking about you, and we're sending you good thoughts and fortified thoughts, although that's a bad naughty word right now. But hope all is well with Valiant. And with everyone else who are struggling with like local weather conditions, including Jane, who sometimes Jane Theory, that is, who sometimes visits Toxic Femininity, which is on later tonight.
It is indeed.
Yes.
Stephen Otten is here. Says, hail, Andre, Tom, Script, Wrenches, and Chat. The quotes concerning the Batman screening give me hope for the first time. March can't come soon enough. Funny you mentioned that. We're going to talk a little bit
Very
about
funny. We were talking about that now before we went live.
We're glad you got that impression from it. We didn't so much, but we'll get into that. We'll dive into that a little bit more here in just a few minutes. In fact, there wasn't that much going on in the news, so that's why we're going to cover that one story coming up here. But we also did a video on that. If you haven't seen it already, so you can share it around because we think it's a very important story. Script brought it to our attention, and we're so glad that he did. I'm hoping everybody kind of just keeps pounding Hollywood with this story because it's a great, or editorial, I should say, because it's a great piece.
Yeah. On that note, Rory Mitchell actually says, "Hey, Midnight's Edge, you really hit it out the park with your Why Cobra Kai Succeeded video. I really hope the video goes viral because it's fantastic."
Yeah, that's just what I was talking about. Exactly.
So but it's not going to go viral on its own, and this platform isn't doing anything to help it. So if you could all check out that video if you haven't already, hit that like and help share it, and also do the same with this stream. Hit that like, smash it, and help share the video, share this stream as well.
Yeah.
And we also have some excellent people watching us now. We have Six is here, Dr. Dave is here. He saw the video this morning, which is awesome. Lindsay the Cynical Geek is here. Sailor Sonic 78 is here. Dash Attack is here, and yeah, he has the proper words for everyone. Go smash that like. Naked Fame is here.
Evidently, Arturo Trevino is coming here from the future to let us know that Shang-Chi flopped.
Yeah, I'm not. We shall see. If you have the lottery numbers, do let me know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we got Larry here. How you doing? Red Tigress, welcome. Spider Unlimited here as well. We got six. Oh, you said six already, but hello.
Yeah, and we have Tim Hayes here. Rambam 3000 is here. Olaf van S is here, and of course Stephanie Janishek's Smugglers Cantina.
Yeah, and we got Troy Pacelli and Rob Altus and David
and
Stout and so many other regulars.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. And Sonder, yep.
Yeah. So yeah, good stuff. And Etienne Falardeau. And of course, Natasha, Head Wrench is here. So everyone behave well in the chat and don't quarrel too much with each other. But right. Of course, we can have some interesting discussions. And speaking of discussions, yes. What do we have today?
Well,
first, Roach H says, last super chat for a while, want to save some money. And thank you for sharing with us. And of course, you got to look after yourself. So yeah, do save up and take care of yourself and yours.
And if anything, the best a share and a like helps just as much. Sometimes you have no idea.
Yeah, put it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything that helps.
You never know. Ray. Okay, that had to be done. I don't know. He's just yelling my name, so I thought I'd yell his back.
Yeah, always nice to return the favor.
But yeah, so there was a Spider-Man test screening, a Batman test screening, I should say. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. The only other really big news was Candyman did okay at the box office. It did about $23 million. But it also had another achievement. It is the first #1 opening film for a black female director. And the crowd goes wild.
Really? The first?
I guess so.
Well, about bloody time then, I guess.
But, overdue, I would think. I thought there would be others before that, but...
I mean, I'm trying to stretch to think of a black female director, period. And I can't offhand. Did Oprah ever direct anything? I don't know.
Features? I don't believe so.
No, I was joking. Oh, well, congratulations to her, and congratulations to the film, even though I heard it's a bit woke. I haven't seen it yet because it's not on streaming, and I don't have it playing anywhere near me, surprisingly, because they're actually playing other movies in the theater, and they didn't see Candyman is a reason to kick in one of the other movies like Paw Patrol out, I guess. So, yeah, it's only a 2-screen theater. But I want to say thank you to James Esperanza for becoming a member.
Yes, and welcome.
Welcome indeed.
We're going to have some more exclusive membership content already.
We're about due for a member stream, too.
Yeah, we that too. And we're also due for some more Norse mythology and behind-the-scenes stories, both of which will be forthcoming in the very near future.
Well, horror movies always do well. You know that, right, Andre? I mean, in regard,
of course.
I mean, Candyman only cost $25 million. So in the end,
that's like the thing that they typically will do. Wait, they spent $25 million on
Candyman? I don't know why.
What the hell for?
That's what I said last night, right, Script?
Yeah. No, a horror doesn't need to be that expensive.
What the fuck did they spend $25 million on this thing for? They could have made it for 10 or 15. Regardless, it'll do well enough. But speaking of horror movies, one of the most prominent things we heard coming out of both the Comic-Con footage for the Batman that was shown and this surprise 3-hour test screening is that Batman's scary. It's a scary movie. It's a horror film. And yeah, the Riddler's scary. It's scary. Dark scary. And 3 hours long.
Since we started to do it, let's do the story and take us through this test screening. Take us through the story.
Well, oh boy, you make me do it. I guess there was a 3-hour test screening for the film.
Where is this story coming from?
The internet.
Yeah, I kind of figured, but more specifically,
Twitter. I guess there's some people claiming they've seen the film. It's all over. It's trending.
Yeah, so the usual stuff then.
Yeah, or you just I don't hear any denials of it though, so it makes sense. We're about that time. According to an insider, though, it's a horror movie, very dark. Paul Dano looks scary. Selena and Bruce argue a lot. And Zoe Kravitz is one of the best parts of the movie, and she is also the best Catwoman. Some other possibilities we got out of it is a surprise twist ending. Of course, it sets up for a sequel. Batman doesn't kill. And one of the other things that I don't know for sure if this is going to be the case or not, but there's illusions, like it's alluded to, that the film may actually be narrated by Pattinson himself. But that is actually one of the only times Pattinson is brought up besides arguing with Zoe a lot. That's kind of funny. Nobody says anything about him being any good in the film.
Has it mentioned anything about him other than that he argues a lot and possibly narrates?
No, not really.
I know what that is. Script. What do you make of that when we have and
this all comes down on the same day that the Spider-Man also surpasses the Batman in views for the trailer with when it's been out for over a year.
Yeah, I would say it reminds me of the old adage: if you have nothing polite to say, don't say anything at all. Which is kind of rare for social media, because usually it's the exact opposite.
And as Lucid Freem said here, they weren't making fun of his voice, but they didn't say anything nice about it. So, and yeah, we all kind of got Seven vibes from the trailer, says Michael MacLeod here. I definitely got that too. Little mix of like Batman Begins and Seven. Yeah, and then Troy Pacelli came in before that to speak on the Candyman and said, Tom, most of the budget for Candyman probably went to the cost of doing business in Chicago. It's a kleptocracy there. That could very well be, because I don't know where else the money would have went other than what's his face's pocket, Peele or whichever one it was.
Jordan Peele was, I think, the producer, right?
Yeah. Spider Unlimited says, side note, as you and Emmy know, I've been on a foreign movie kick lately, and I must say, for the most part, their content blows away the past 20 years of Hollywood. I can imagine why, considering they probably don't, deal in woke so much as Hollywood does. But that'll actually be something we'll get into a little bit later with the Cobra Kai article. But speaking of good or bad, we're not hearing anything really good, right? Like, I haven't heard anybody say, oh, it's really good, other than there's a few people saying it might be the most emotional Batman movie ever, most darkest. I've seen a few people say it could be the best ever, but that doesn't sound like it's coming from people who have actually seen it.
Yeah, when you ask the question, I mean, if you've seen a pre-screening of it, why would you ask the question if it's the best ever? Like you'd know, or at least have some indication and be able to argue a little bit for why. And what I find to be very disturbing, or not disturbing, that's the wrong word, but to me is a red flag, is that if people have seen the movie, they talk about Catwoman, but they don't say anything about Batman, or Bruce Wayne. That's weird to me. That's a weird omission.
We got one from Discussing Film here. They actually say that it's radically different. And Bruce is really working out his rage, and the fight seems very personal. So I guess that's the most.
Yeah, we saw that. We saw that in the trailer, that he beat someone up Daredevil style.
And I guess that was one of the
not even
scenes that was
Daredevil
shown.
style.
Yeah.
He just wails on him like a little kid wailing on a bully, and then eventually the guy goes down. Because I mean, Batman's journey before he puts on the cowl is to deal with his rage, and then when he becomes Batman, he's this disciplined, calculating guy trying to take out the underworld of Gotham. And what escalates things is, like, reveals of characters like the Joker and the Riddler and Scarecrow and Poison Ivy and all them, and he's now got to push himself harder to stop these crazy new eccentric villains that he never planned for. But here, if he's dealing with his rage while he's still in the costume, it's like, yeah, he's kind of reckless.
Balls. There's already people showing parallel scenes between Batman Begins and this movie, and we only have a fucking trailer's worth of footage.
Yeah.
That's another thing I was afraid of. Honestly, I have very little faith in this film. And
well, I mean, the one thing that concerns me is it's a 3-hour test screening.
Here's another one that says Batman. It talks about Batman, but it says Batman has major anger issues. So he thinks, just because he's some angry young man, that makes it different. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just Batmaned out. Because I always get so much shit when I talk shit about this movie.
Well, it's easy for me then, because I'll say the same thing that I've said since day one. I remain unconvinced. Yeah. I've been waiting for something to convince me that this movie is going to be fine, it's going to be cool, it's going to be good. I'm still waiting for that. Still haven't gotten anything to convince me that this is going to be the movie that that Batman needs right now. I think the movie's going to be perfectly fine. I don't think it's going to be particularly bad, but I also don't think it's going to be particularly good, and I don't think it's going to be particularly Batman. I think it's going to be Batman deconstructed in a way that's going to be very controversial with a lot of fans. Some people are going to love it, others are going to hate it, most are going to be like, yeah, mostly harmless. So it's going to be very divided opinion, and it certainly won't be the new Dark Knight. And you can clip me on that.
Okay, here's a breakdown. Rob's Batman narrates the whole film. He does not kill. In fact, he's very against it, and there's a scene that makes that very clear. Alfred has significant scenes. There's blood teetering between thriller and horror. And that's about the most of that one. So there you go.
Do we know anything about the story other than it's going to be a ripoff of Seven?
Not really.
Well, it's probably gonna. Well, like the rumors is that it's a hybridization of like a Batman Year 2 story and the Long Halloween and a couple other things, and we don't know for sure. Yeah, listen, I too have not been convinced. It could surprise us. It could, but when I see something that's 3 hours, I mean, I think the Dark Knight Rises was close to 3 hours, pushing it. And even that was kind of a slog for even Christopher Nolan, who even didn't even want to make that movie. It's kind of telling, because Warner Brothers is not going to be happy that's 3 hours. So they're going to want that to be down to 2. And there's already talks that, yeah, Matt Reeves is going to have to cut this film down to 2 hours, or at least 2.5. And that's not that's really a bad sign when it comes to a writer-director starting a new film or a new property, is that they don't have the discipline to tell a concise, entertaining story within a reasonable time limit. Because it's you know, a good Batman movie could be, you know, an hour 40 to 2 hours, and you can get a lot done in that time. But if you need that extra hour, there's clearly some other story or plot or character motivation that you're throwing in there that just might not be as essential to what you're trying to do as you think it is. And if you're the writer and the director, you don't have really that extra voice in there to say, hey, maybe we need to focus a little bit more on this subject matter or this motivation or this goal or this part of the mystery, because 3 hours is a
Oh
long time
shit!
for people.
Sorry.
Go for it.
My friend watched the Batman test screening. He told me someone shouted, "Make the Ben Affleck movie," and everybody clapped. I don't know if that's true.
I hope so.
I'm thinking that's just somebody having fun, but
probably. But I can always hope that they had fun.
That's all he keeps saying. The test, it's just 3 hours long. 3 hours long. 3 hours long.
That's like weird, because whenever we have like these leaked test screenings, we usually get a little bit more than 3 hours long. Okay, fine, we get it. It's
Maybe
3
there
hours
is no
long. Then
story
what
to this
happens?
movie, because somebody brings up a kind of a joke here, and it's funny. The Batman leaks set photos of people standing. No Way Home leaks the whole fucking plot. Yeah, we've never gotten a plot leak about this movie. Probably because there's nothing that interesting that happens in it that's any different than
Or
any
maybe it's so
Batman
confusing
movie.
that no one really got it. I don't know.
Oh,
I just don't think it's anything
yeah.
that special, is my point. Like, I don't think it's... Because you would think if there was something groundbreaking in it or mind-blowing that we'd be hearing all about it now. And I you know, like, it just doesn't sound like there's anything that, you know, sensational in it, I guess, is my word I'm looking for. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
which is...
where's the draw, really?
Yeah.
I think the draw was supposed to be Robert Pattinson. That and director Matt Reeves. Best guess?
I mean, for me, I need something a bit more. If it's like, listen, the players who are working on the film is definitely an important aspect, but you need that something extra. I mean, when Batman Begins was the first trailer came out, they said, "Oh yeah, the main villain's going to be Ra's al Ghul," and you're like, "Ooh, we haven't seen him on screen before." And you know, it's like, are they going to do the Lazarus Pit? Or you got the League of Shadows? You got all this stuff that's going to unfold for the Batman fans to explore. But in this one, it's like, okay, we got the Riddler. Well, we've seen the Riddler in a couple of interpretations, live action. What else is there? It's like, oh, we got Catwoman too. Well, we've seen Catwoman, and it's like, oh, we got the Penguin. All right, we've seen Danny DeVito's Penguin. We've seen Burgess Meredith's Penguin. Like, where's something new? It's like, we don't have a Scarecrow, so there's nothing. And then that was what we also got in Batman Begins. It's like, well, what are you bringing new to the table? Batman has metal body armor. Like, that's not enough, really. Like, where's that little, like, je ne sais quoi, the parsley, the thing that gives it that extra flavor that will set it apart from all the other interpretations. Jeffrey Wright as Gordon. He's a good actor and he could probably do the part, but that's not enough. He's still playing a character I know. So it's where's that extra thing, right?
Didn't this start shooting before Spider-Man?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I don't know of any movie that has been shut down and restarted quite as many times as this one.
I was gonna say,
because it started, but really, this movie has been so troubled since day one.
No, I've heard everything's going just fine. According to certain YouTubers, it's doing just great.
Yeah, well, that's
There's
great,
no problems.
but yeah.
It's the
Well,
best
there are
movie ever.
delays then.
It went
It's not
so
problems.
fucking smooth that everything went to plan. Nothing went wrong in this movie. Nobody fucked anybody on the Batmobile. That's all just hearsay.
Yeah. I will say, though, that it's actually a shame that that's hearsay, because that's the most badass thing about the entire movie so far.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funny part, is a lot of the same people who claimed everything else was bullshit believe that. It's like, okay, honestly, I just don't know if this movie is going to be the Batman movie everybody thinks it is. I think this is going to be one of the lowest grossing Batman movies since probably Batman Begins or Batman Forever.
Well, to be fair, any movie that would have come, a Batman movie that would come out now would be the lowest grossing just because of state of cinemas and stuff. And yeah, we'll see
take
how
that
it is.
out. Take that
When
out
is
of the
this?
equation.
When is this supposed to open?
It don't even come out till March.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that soon?
And that's another thing. What world do you release a Batman movie in fucking March? Oh yeah,
that's
BBS.
No, that's the start of the summer season now.
Ah, fuck that. No, you put a Batman movie in June or July.
It's usually like the weekend of June 16th. Almost
Yeah,
every.
I was gonna say Dark Knight was a big one for July that one year. I remember.
Yep.
And I remember going to see Rise over the summer too as well. But I don't know. I hope for the those looking forward to it, it's good. I have very little faith in this movie. I really do. I'm sure I'll get some shit for it, but he's got to convince me among others. I mean, I know plenty of people say, "Oh, he can act, he can act, he can act."
Yeah, I'm one of them. He
we'll
can.
see.
Yeah, he absolutely. No one is disputing that he can act. That's not the issue. The issue is he a right fit for the part?
Honestly, all I've seen him do is act like an asshole.
Yeah, it's the vision that's been cooked up by the studio and by Matt Reeves. Is that going to be something that the fans will accept? Will they accept this joint mishmash together of different visions? Because remember, here you had like some producer requests, you have the input from the director, and finally Robert Pattinson, who's supposed to bring this to life. Like, will that unholy trinity actually work and be something that fans will accept as Batman on screen? I don't know that that's the case. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe some will think it's the best Batman ever, others will think it's the worst. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be universally praised, though.
Dark Shadow says, all this comes from a leaker who has no track record and opens up his leak with a friend saw Batman. We should believe him because he's a good guy. No, we never said that. In fact, I said clearly this is random people. The ones that were...
and I even opened with, where is this from? And it's very weird that this is so... that there's so little detail here.
Yeah, and the one I did say was from that one outlet and stuff like that. And there was a few that were from random people that were just like, yeah. So like I said, take it with a grain of salt. It's just a bunch of people talking online. And even that one I specifically said was probably bullshit. But
the Ben Affleck one, yeah.
Yeah. Let's Watch says, I'm looking forward to the Batman. It looks good. And it's okay, Tom. I still like you, even if you disagree with me on this. And thank you for that. Now, that's something we don't seem to have enough of in this world nowadays. If somebody disagrees with you, you automatically hate them. It's funny. Because I got into a little spat this morning, too, with somebody who's like, you guys have done nothing but hate Marvel lately. I'm like, tell me why we've been so hateful on Marvel. You guys have hated everything since Endgame. I'm like, nah, not really.
No, that's not true. I hated Endgame.
Yeah, you really you didn't hate it, actually. You gave it a decent review at the time.
Yeah, fine. I was blinded by it at the time, but the more I think about it, the less I like it. I stand by the fact that the MCU ended with Infinity War. That was the last real Marvel movie.
Here's my response to that. It was like, okay, well, we all liked Far From Home, from my recollection. Black Widow, the first 2/3 were decent, but it went to shit at the end, and we all said about the same thing about WandaVision. You gave Loki a pass, and nobody saw Falcon or Winter Soldier. So the response was, you're not a true fan. You didn't see Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. We liked pretty much everything that came out except for Winter Soldier because we didn't see it. So, like, we're not fan. Like, all it's like, oh, God, you lost.
Well, I saw clips and bits and pieces of it.
But no, my point was
it.
He got back. He couldn't. He got proven wrong. So that was his response. I was just like, really, dude? Seriously? Hyperguyver 2 says, it's the car. Chicks dig the car. Yeah, that's a Val Kilmer line. I remember that one. Joker Voice says, a good story, villain. Telling the Court of Owls for Batman. What about me?
Oh, he's all right, yeah. That's Scott Snyder's contribution.
Not a true fan. Oh, Lord. Anyway, no, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully it's good. I'm hoping it's good. But we do know how to make a good movie now, or at least Hollywood should know how to make a good movie. But they can't lately. But one of the showrunners on Cobra Kai has an idea how to make a good movie, though, or good TV show. So why don't we get into that?
Yes, let's get into that.
I should have had it ready, but I don't. Let's see here. Where is it? I know you sent it to me, script. Somebody vamp.
Well, considering that you edited it less than 24 hours ago.
Finally, now. Yeah, now that people start talking, I got it. While I'm bringing it up, Daniel sends us a super chat here. Let me see here. Says, I want to thank Andre for his pro Cobra Kai video yesterday. I began watching it, and I'm having a wonderful time with the show. The showrunner was not blowing smoke with his article, and that's what we're about to get into right here, Daniel. So that was perfect timing for that. And Sukiyami99 says, on a side note, as a fan of Conan, as Andre and I and Script are, I was wondering if Andre was interested in Elric the Melonborn.
Not hugely. Like, I like Elric fine. Like, he's the anti-Conan. I read the original cycle of Elric stories by Michael Moorcock. Beyond that, I've read very little about him and or from him, and like Elric fine. Not a huge fan. Honestly, would have preferred to get like a proper Elric adaptation than the rip-off Witcher, which is then total Elric rip-off. So yeah, like Elric, fine, not a huge fan.
There you go. So, and I think we're caught up then on the super chat. So with that, let's get into this article here.
Yeah,
this comes from Hayden Schlossberg, who's one of the showrunners and creators of Cobra Kai. I'm going to read the main portion, and then we'll just get into each bit of it here. He says, ever since Cobra Kai premiered in 2018, I've heard some version of the following. I can't believe how much I loved your show, because whenever Hollywood attempts to bring back a classic movie franchise, it almost never works out. Well, my co-creators, John Hurwitz and Josh Heald, and I completely understand where that sentiment comes from. Having grown up in the 1980s, we are the target audience for most of the repackaged, revamped, rebooted movie franchises we grew up with. We know what it's like to get lured in by nostalgia, only to feel let down by a cash grab that takes advantage of our childhood memories. But that didn't stop us from bringing back one of our favorite movie franchises, The Karate Kid. And now that its follow-up, Cobra Kai, has found success at Netflix and is nominated for an Outstanding Comedy Series Emmy, we want to share our approach to resurrecting classic movies and TV shows. Now, before we break into this, again, I reiterate, this is an article that I think should be shared far and wide. Andre did an editorial video of it this morning or last night that dropped, and that's easily shareable. So that's my suggestion on that too. Get this out there so people see, because I feel like it's not just revivals that need to take these notes, but everything that needs to take these notes, especially anything that's an existing IP. Right, Andre?
Yes, exactly. Because just think about it. How many adaptations and revivals have we gotten the last few years? And how many of those were any good? By my count, Cobra Kai was good.
Creed.
And there's hope for Ghostbusters Afterlife. But beyond that, Creed. I can't think of a single one that was awful, that was anything other than awful.
Creed and Creed 2 are the only two I can think
of. Okay, yeah, fine. Creed. Yeah. Those were good. They followed the Cobra Kai rules.
I was just going to say, Creed followed a lot of the Cobra Kai rules, though. So that's where it worked out. So here we go. The first rule is, do treat the original franchise with reverence. Just as you should honor thy father and mother, so should you honor the franchise you're bringing back. Remember, your show would not exist without the original movie. This is not just IP. It's something precious to millions of people. Treat it that way. I mean, that's probably one of our biggest gripes, especially when it came to like Star Wars sequels and all the other stuff. I mean, you've got to be a fan to really understand what fans love about these properties, right, Script?
Exactly, and it also requires you as a creator or a writer or a producer or what have you to do the research on the subject that you're working on. Again, these 12 rules that are in this article, you can apply them to, you can see them work out quite effectively in Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. It's every single moment in that movie hits any one of these rules. They introduce new characters, they respect the original characters, they draw on nostalgia, they build off of nostalgia. Everything that is listed in these 12 rules is listed into quite possibly one of the best revival films from television, which would be Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. So, I mean, he's just drawing on things that he's picked up. He's drawing on things that a whole bunch of us as writers have learned in the early days about when you're doing a follow-up, like a sequel to a franchise, or you're sequelizing or moving like a franchise from film to television or vice versa. You got to pay attention to these things because the whole idea that why this IP sells is that it has a built-in core audience. So you've got to retain them and then expand and grow. And every one of these rules, I have heard before in some variation of, in order to achieve that.
Indeed. Andre, anything to add to that first rule?
No, I think your script summed it up really, really well. I mean, this is fairly basic and common sense stuff, but the really important rules, though, they're later to come. But we're off to a good start.
Yeah. Second rule: don't be afraid to make big changes. Respecting the material doesn't mean you can't be original. Fans don't want to see the same thing they've seen before. Karate Kid fans love Cobra Kai because we took the bully Johnny Lawrence from the original movie and made him the underdog of our story. And when we brought this up on Mead the other night, that's where I pointed out that a lot of people don't even stop to think of how much Cobra Kai really mirrors the original Karate Kid just because they were so clever at how they presented the story to you.
Not only that, audiences love underdogs.
Yes.
You show a guy or a girl down on their luck, not feeling, like life has worked out for them. We empathize with that greatly, and we want to see them succeed, especially when they get an idea of how to do better. It's like, yes, go for it, do it. It's the easiest way to draw an audience in, but it's like the premise wise is easiest, but to effectively do that and nail it, that takes a lot of work and a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where Creed, I think definitely takes a lot from too, is where it's a very similar story to Rocky, only it's the reversal, right? Instead of a guy who's, broke on his own and, can't even catch a break, you got the kid of a former boxer being taught by this guy now, much like he was taught by an old guy who owns the same gym he does now. But this kid had a bunch more opportunities and he's trying to prove himself and get out from under the shadow of a very prominent person, right? Like, so he's, trying to prove himself in another way. So it's a very similar story, just kind of told from a little bit different perspective. And I think that's where it kind of works, is when you can take the original concept and kind of flip it around a little bit, turn it on its head without it being too damn obvious, right? Like, you can go to that cringe, kind of area where it's all you're doing is, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I know there's been a couple lately where they just basically take the original concept, flip it on its head. It's like, here we got the sequel. Oh, that one you posted the other day was a great example. He's all that.
Oh yeah, he's all that. God, that threw me off. I'm like, what? And it's got the kid. It's got Robbie from Cobra Kai in it.
Oh Lord, no! But like that kind of point where they, where they just take the concept and just like, oh, we'll just take it and race swap it or sex swap it or whatever. It's just lazy. Do create new characters to enrich your story and reach younger viewers. It's true that if you want to attract a younger audience, it helps to have a younger cast. New characters can bring fresh energy and perspective to your franchise. I mean, look at Cobra Kai, for instance. They did a great job of balancing the classic characters with some of the new characters. And because of that, at least people who are fans of the show, have come to embrace all those new characters, which is a rarity. Because a lot of times when they try to switch over to some new characters in a franchise, it doesn't work out too well, at least in my mind.
Hawk is one of the most badass characters there is. And also Jolo is a great like new point of view character. And like the chemistry between him and everyone else is just it's just amazing, especially with his sensei, who is the new Miyagi in a sense.
And I understand where
yeah.
Infinite Wanderers coming here was the first Creed. I don't disagree with some of those points, but I also love the second Creed a lot.
I prefer the second Creed.
Yeah, and I think that one gets past all the early
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I don't dispute Infinite Wanderer's points here.
Yeah.
He's very right, because that was one of my contentions when I realized, like, wait a minute, like, it's not like this Adonis guy is not from Creed's wife.
Yeah, that was a poor, because you could have just had it to where
she was like a couple weeks pregnant. And
exactly, yeah. And not only that, I understand why they didn't have. I mean, this goes back to Rocky Balboa. Rocky had Adrian die because he's like, she's done the same thing for the last 3 movies.
Yeah, and then he dedicated a restaurant to her and then ran.
Yeah,
that.
and she was in the original script, and Balboa, Jesus Christ, Sylvester Stallone's like, yeah, she was just doing the same shit she does in the other 3 movies. So we're like, maybe if we take her out of the equation, that gives Rocky, a little bit different kind of motivations. And
but like, you see how awesome and how valuable she was to him, because he goes to her grave every day with that white stool. He sits down, he talks with her, he leaves a flower. It's part of his routine. It's like, yeah, she may have been in the background in a couple of the films and stuff, but there was something more to her than just that from Rocky's perspective, and he kind of really got drawn into that relationship.
And going back to that, I think that's where the root of that is in Rocky Balboa, because we see that even though Rocky is not as rich as he once was or as successful as he once was, he's still the same old guy.
And he does reasonably well for himself.
Yeah, he does all right for himself. Yeah. So, I mean,
he got back on his feet.
Yeah, I don't like that they made Apollo a cheater, but, it is kind of silly. Matt Giles says Cobra Kai flows so naturally from the 80s into now. Star Wars didn't flow, didn't even know what direction it was going. KK wrote it backwards like a turd speeding down the shit. I don't know about that analogy, but I guess it fits. Willie Woodward, our good buddy, says Battlestar Galactica, from what I understand of France, I think he's trying to say, My Little Pony, friendship is magic. I'm not going there. Some modern examples that are true and they follow those rules. I don't.
Somewhat. Battlestar Galactica the remake starts off very strong. The ending,
who debate
I'm not a fan of the ending. It kind of goes a little bit off the rails. I think they lost what they were going for. But it's still a very entertaining show. One of the things that works with Cobra Kai, but especially other concepts when you're dealing with IP, is that you take the main character of the original and you make them the mentor character to the new team. You just recreate that type of relationship, because one of the things that's kind of fascinating, even if you look at the original Star Wars, is that we're following Luke, who's learning from Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan has conveyed to us that there was a larger story behind what he was doing beforehand. So he would have been the main character in Luke's position of his story years and years and years ago, and is just kind of passing the baton, handing things off, and teaching the next generation. And still doing so, and still doing so by having reverence for those characters and treating them as if, they were once heroes who have just kind of settled in retirement, whatever that retirement might be. It could be a positive one, it could be a negative one, but the younger character brings them out of that routine back to the adventurer style of life, and that's kind of what really engages audiences.
Yeah. An Infinite Wanderer still wants to hear us talk to Drinker about Creed. I've seen the video. I'm sure the next time we have him, maybe if we have some time, we'll bring it up to him. But I don't know when we'll get a chance to. It's not always easy to nail down the Drinker.
Well, he keeps stumbling around, reaching for scotch.
Somewhere off on a bender. But there's a but here. But don't forget about the original characters or your older audience. Here's where we get into some of the more important bits too. Sure, you want to lure in younger viewers, but first you must win over the hardcore fans who made your franchise a success. Yes. This is something that we've been trying to hit home for how many years now?
To me, this is the point that kind of encompasses all the others in a sense. This is where so many go wrong, and it's unbelievable to me how many seem to have the opinion that the older fans are pigs and the original iterations are problematic. So we just want like the brand name, but then we want to spin it off in another direction for a brand new audience that we think is going to spring into existence. And why so many keep on believing in that delusion is completely beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to everything we've been saying. This predates the woke stuff, right?
A little, yeah.
Because this is this is kind of what got me into this in the first place, was like I was getting sick and tired of seeing the oncoming McDonaldization of movies and properties that I love. And, you know, I mean, first one that pops to my mind was like when Ninja Turtles, they had zero fucking interest in respecting the original story. You know, and same thing with Fant Four Stick, which brought me to Midnight's Edge. And, you know, then we got to Ghostbusters and so on. And I'm sure there's a few more if we go back. Look at all the other remakes we had over the years that just stunk to high heaven. I mean, that to me is the number one thing to really realize when you're revamping something or you're working with an old IP is do not forget your classic audience. The examples I went to, I believe the other night, was I may not have been alive in 78, but I can guarantee you there was a lot of people who said, you know, like George Reeves is going to be my Superman forever. I don't give a shit who plays him. But that movie won a lot of people over. And I do remember vividly back in 89, the same kind of thing. Like a lot of my older cousins and uncles and stuff like that going, oh, that Michael Keaton, he's just Beetlejuice. He'll never be Batman. My Batman's Adam West. Right. Yeah. You know, and then they finally walked out of Batman and like, Jesus Christ, that was a damn good movie. You know, like like Christopher Reeve, Michael Keaton had won people over, and so did the film. And it was a movie in both cases that paid homage to the character from where they came from, but also brought a lot of new shit to the table. And that's where I feel like those two movies specifically, they managed to not piss on the old fans, but bring a lot of new fans to the table. And it didn't even really rely on the older versions, if you stop and think about it, because at no point do either version really do any big callbacks to the original film or TV show, right?
Like they're very much their own thing.
Yeah, the closest thing we get in Batman that calls back to the old TV show is the Prince music.
Yeah.
Well, that's a trick with some modification. I mean, if you check out Batman and Robin, and also
that's
Batman
down the
Forever.
road. Yeah, that's down the road, though. That's a totally different discussion.
Oh, yeah.
There's some subtle references there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, Schumacher flat out said that Batman and Robin was clearly paying homage to the Adam West Batman.
Didn't quite nail it, though.
No, he just didn't quite get it. But, yeah.
Well, I think that's because Akiva Goldsman wrote that script, and Akiva Goldsman did not understand the nuance or the humor that was in the old William Dozier series, which... I really want to revisit that on this forum on YouTube with a bunch of people, because it's still like holds up even to this day.
Yeah, a lot of Bat Tom talk in the chat. I just thought it was skit, but it's kind of stupid. It's called Bat Tom Begins His Day, and it's just Batman getting up and taking a piss for like a minute.
That's called the Morning Constitutional. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. All right, moving on. Do use nostalgia to draw your audience into the story. Classic movies like The Karate Kid have been rewatched on VHS, DVD, cable so many times that people remember certain lines and scenes more vividly than their own childhood memories. Calling back these moments can have huge emotional impact. Like there is like where Cobra Kai shines, right? They do such a great job of integrating all the things that happened prior to it.
Well, the best one is, Robbie's got his shoulder dislocated, and Daniel slaps his hands together and rubs them, just like Mr. Miyagi. And you think, oh, man, he's going to do that thing. And then he just calls for a medic. And it's like, it's a great, it's nostalgic, but it also is a surprise turn, and it's a good comedic beat. And, it just shows that Daniel's is a different type of mentor. Channeling Mr. Miyagi as opposed to being a direct, rip-off or, direct rip-off or direct mirror of the character of that original character.
There are a couple of other moments I'd like to highlight there as well. Yeah. Because you have like the same thing with like the wax on, wax off, when he was like wondering, is there any way I should watch this? Like, I don't give a shit, just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
but he has his other methods of doing things that Miyagi didn't have. like throwing kids who can't swim into the pool to turn
The
teach them
cement
how to
mixer.
kick, or put them into that cement mixer. Yeah, I mean that's going to toughen you up real fast. So he has his own Miyagi-style tricks up his sleeve.
Exactly. And I even like how Daniel's presented, like Script was bringing up, is he's got his own way of doing things, not just the Miyagi way. And that's what I was hoping for out of Luke, for instance, in The Last Jedi. And I think a lot of other people might agree with me when you say, like, Script brought up the whole, kind of the way it went with Obi-Wan and how he would have been presented as a character earlier on, much like Luke, or for instance, like, in our case, it became his father for that story. But regardless, in this instance, though, we had all figured, he's going to be the Obi-Wan of this story. Nobody ever said Luke Skywalker had to be the lead character or, the star or the hero. All we kind of figured was he was going to be the Obi-Wan of this story. Right. And all we expected out of him is to kind of act a little bit like Obi-Wan, a little bit like Luke, and maybe a little bit like Yoda in his approach. Right. Like that's all anybody asked for. And that's where throughout the movie, I kind of was like still with it. Because I'm like, okay, he's kind of like Yoda now, kind of doing stuff.
Is he testing Rey? Is he throwing a duck blind at her to challenge her? Yeah.
And they kind of fucked with us with the whole him tickling her hand and shit like that. Like, okay, I'm like, okay, so he's fucking with her like Yoda would. But then as it kept going, it's like, okay, he's not breaking that nastiness. You know what I mean? He's not changing. He's not doing anything. And at least with like Karate Kid, even, or Cobra Kai, even with Daniel, when he goes to that point where he realizes, wait, I've gone way beyond what Miyagi taught me, and I've forgotten a lot of what Miyagi taught me, right? So you have that arc. You didn't even get that moment with Luke, where he's like, wait a minute, what the fuck am I doing here? I mean, they kind of have it, but it's a cheat. And that's one of the moments that I think most fans wanted to see, was where Luke's like, oh shit, they killed my sister, they killed my best friend, everything's gone to shit, and I'm sitting here on an island all by myself. It's like, we didn't get that moment to see him go shit and go raise that X-wing out of the water and go save his friends. It's just, but his sister didn't die. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Or my sister's about to die or whatever. Merlin Zid says, I recall one of my high school wrestling matches when I took my opponent down to the mat. My brother shouted from the stands, "Get him a body bag." Yeah, see? Exactly. And because of that, now you remember that even more vividly. And that's kind of what they're bringing up here. Adam Wolford says, episodes 7, 8, and 9 should have copied Cobra Kai. We might have a better Star Wars movie, and I would be looking forward to the Thrawn trilogy that might be coming. Yeah, that was basically exactly what I was just saying, Adam Wolford, is just how they handled the two different characters is astounding. Ravi Comatoretti, if I'm saying that right, Comatoretti?
Yeah, that seems about
Canary in the coal mine to know you have the right team for a reboot. They don't refer to beloved characters and stories as just IP or content. Exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good point. I'm sure that's something that you hear a lot in your line of work there.
Well, not so much in my circles, but I do hear it from other people down the transom. It's like, oh yeah, they're just talking about it as content and stuff. And like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the next one though is unless Andre wanted to say something there. Sorry. Did you have any more to add?
That's all right. No, go for it.
Don't rely on nostalgia. Callbacks bring back memories, but they don't tell a story. Even hardcore fans will tune out if they aren't hooked to a compelling plot and characters. The key is using nostalgia to create something new and exciting. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of Cobra Kai in a nutshell right there, right?
Yeah, the nostalgia they do is really just to set up a joke, if anything.
Usually, or it's it's poignant. I love how they handled the stuff from part 2 in the last season.
Oh, with Chosen?
Yeah, all that stuff how it was integrated.
That was amazing. Just seeing him again, so unexpected and so cool.
Yeah, and even though it was a little kind of cheap how they used the one girl that he saved in the tower, I even forgave that. Like that was the one time where I'm like, they might have went a little too.
Well, I mean, the lesson there was that if you always help someone when you have the opportunity to, that might pay it back in.
It's karma. It's a karmic lesson.
Yeah, it's a karmic lesson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lindsay says, I'm sorry, I wasn't willing to buy Rey as the Jedi, not after Jar Jar teased Finn as the Force sensitive and Rey as the Han Solo of the group. You're not wrong. I agree with you to a point.
Oh, man. Yeah.
The other problem is Rey just has zero charisma. Like she has, there's nothing about her that you want to root for her. All she wants
I
to
would
do
say
is
it
go
comes
home.
across that way. Like it's not the fault of the actress who gets like a bad rap. It's the script. It's how the entire story is conceived.
Yeah.
Because she's basically the opposite of Luke.
She has
right?
no want. She wants to stay where she is. She's comfortable in her
Exactly
life, waiting for her family to return. It's like, that's not an interesting character. Sorry.
That would be like Luke, like Luke when he says, I can't go with you. He's not saying it because he wants to stay. He just knows he's got all this responsibility at home and he can't just leave his uncle and aunt in a lurch. And it's like, he's got all these things he's complaining about. But like, then once he gets home and realizes, oh shit, they blew up my life. It's like, well, what else can I do? Like Ray on the other hand,
I have nothing to keep me here now. That's what he says. I have nothing to keep me here now.
Yeah, and I get it. Ray wants to go home because she thinks that there's this fucking chance she's gonna have her parents show up, but that is the most fucking stupid, convoluted thing ever. Because like they ain't showed up yet, kid.
Yeah, since 4 to like it's been 20 years.
Almost 20
grab a
years,
ship, fly out, and look for them.
No shit. Yeah,
yeah.
She supposedly can fly so well. So yeah, why the fuck didn't she get out of there sooner?
No, that'd be a great thing if we saw her on Jakku, because she's looking, because this is where her parents were last spotted. And
exactly.
she's like trying to figure them out. And she's like, well, I haven't found them here. And then Finn's running away from the Empire. It's like, well, listen, I've got a ship. Let's go fly around. Let's get you far away. And maybe you can help me look for my family, because you got Imperial, first order computer access. They have networks and stuff, things of nature where, two goals kind of collide. But no, they decide to go the really peculiar route of just as how opposite can we make her like Luke, and then at the same time make her better than Luke? It's just weird. It's weird.
Rambam says, stupidest thing the stormtroopers did was kill Orin and Brew. Well, if the rumors are true, they're going to retcon that anyway. It's going to be Boba Fett who did it.
Because
story.
Well, as far as Luke Skywalker is concerned, it luckily doesn't change his motivation. But
that's true.
The only reason they'll do that is so they have a reason to bring CGI Luke back to go after Boba Fett. So anyhow, I mean, that the nostalgia thing, we all love it, but again, you can rely on it too much. Great examples: Terminator, Sega Genesis. That whole movie is trying to be one big nostalgia trip, and they do a great job. They do a great job of recreating certain scenes, but outside of that, it's soulless and it's pointless. I mean, at least it's not as bad as the next one, but still. Okay, now this is cool because I remember when these guys talked about this in an actual interview, right? They brought these two specific ones up. Do ask yourself why now. You should be asked the question many times in greenlight process, so you might as well have the answer. For Cobra Kai, our answer was that bullying is more relevant today than ever, and we wanted to explore that topic by re-examining Johnny, one of the most iconic bullies in movie history. But do not overthink the why now. There's a reason your franchise is classic. Most likely it taps into something universal and timeless. So while it helps to give your story some social relevance, you also want to be relevant 20 years from now. Focus on the classic themes that will stand the test of time. Now, Script and I, when we brought this up the other night, we went to a movie that doesn't have a movie that's being turned into or getting a reboot anytime soon, but is a great example of a timeless film. And it's about time, which is funny as hell. And that is Back to the Future. Even though that film takes place in two very specific moments in time, the story elements of it are so timeless, and it doesn't really dwell too much on things,
the contemporary nature of that time,
the contemporary era, like as you normally would in one of these kind of films where they really point out like a lot of the pop culture things of the time or popular music, and they make a big to-do about it, right? Like I brought up, even though I liked the film, Bumblebee has a shit ton of anachronisms, and it kind of took me out of the movie after a while, because it's like, when is this movie supposed to be taking place? Like they're doing too much of this "we're in the 80s" thing throughout the whole fucking movie. It's just like, just tell the fucking story. You're distracting me too much with this other shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the jokes they do that are relatively dated actually are very prevalent to the time. Like, for instance, when Marty McFly tells Doc, the president of the United States is Ronald Reagan, and he's like, the actor? And then he sees the video camera. He's like, no wonder you have portable video cameras and your president's an actor. He's got to look good on television. Like, they're making all these jokes that are supporting the actual contemporary nature, but it's a very timeless one, because we know now the background of the character that they're talking about, because it's all relatively important story beats for Marty to try and convince, Doc Brown of the 50s that they know each other, that they work together, that they're friends, and all this stuff. And it's just all set up and payoff, and it's done so to the point where anyone watching it today can understand exactly what's going on.
And not only that, it's a little benign, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not like
It's passive. Yeah.
in a sense of like what I mean is like Reagan will always be president, right? We know he was president in the 1980s. Kids will learn from now on that he was a president throughout, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it's not something that's going to get lost by the wayside. Now, if Marty would have made a joke like, Jesus Christ, Doc, Michael Jackson isn't even born yet, or something like that, that kind of a joke is going to date itself.
Yeah.
Making a specific reference like that, as opposed to like that where it's a bit of an over kind of reference. And the other little things like when he steps into the town square are great examples too. They don't like blow it up in your face that it's the 1950s exactly like they would in most of these movies. I mean, it's there, but it's subtle at first until he kind of creeps further and further into the Times Square, and he finally picks up that paper. Just before that is when we probably get the most 50s shit in our face, right? You've got the music playing in the background, you've got the cars driving by, and the kid bouncing around on the little fucking rubber springs. Like at that point you're like, okay, something's different here. And then he looks at the paper, because we're still kind of like he is, like, wait, it's the same but it's different. So you kind of, it's not like in your face like it is in the sequel, where they really play it up, right? Like they're doing it on purpose. They're in the sequel, like all this stuff, and because they said it flat out, they're like, well, we don't know what the future is going to look like, so we're going to have fun, and we're going to do what all these movies usually do when they send you the future, right? And they're just going to throw it all in your face. So like, and that's a good example of where we talked earlier about kind of flipping it on its head, but a good way of doing it. But like, yeah, like beyond that, because Back to the Future, they're not going to make it anytime soon, right? But Cobra Kai was something that lended itself to one of these kind of revamps or reboots. And I think Ghostbusters, hopefully these are questions I think Jason Reitman had to ask himself, right, Andre?
I really hope that he did. And by the trailer, it kind of looks like it, because that looks like it's going to be something akin to Cobra Kai.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was the other one I wanted to bring up here. Yeah, there was the Star Wars, Star Trek reference in Back to the Future, but that's about one of the more dated ones you could really argue.
Well, I mean, it's the 50s. He's George is a fan of science fiction. Yeah.
And the Calvin Klein jokes, maybe outside of that, there really isn't that much that's too dated.
Brand names on clothing is now way more popular today than it was before.
True. That's very true.
Yeah, but on that note, this is something that I've noticed more of. That I think like the movies made in the past decade are going to be way, way dated in just a couple of years. And the first time I was really conscious of that was in The Amazing Spider-Man, the reboot from 2012. And I was, as I saw that movie in theaters for the first time, I had two thoughts. One was, this is shit. That was one thought. The other was, this movie is super contemporary to right now, and it's going to be dated beyond belief in 5 years. In 10 years, the Sam Raimi movie is going to hold up better because it's going to be more timeless in a way, whereas the Amazing Spider-Man is going to be very 2012 by everything in it. The music, the cinematography, the reliance on mobile, just everything kind of like tied it to a very specific moment in time. And we see this with like every single adaptation that is announced. I mean, they say it in Why the Last Man. They say it in like everything. Oh, we're going to make it for current year and more contemporary. And in the process, they just date it tremendously. Don't they realize that? Like, script, what are they doing? Why don't they realize this? And does that tie into what you were saying, Tom?
Oh, the excuse that I get a lot is so many people, they take that question, do ask yourself why now, and they take it far too literally. It's like, why now? How does this reflect now? People care about now. It's like, no, we don't. As human beings, we do not care about the present as much as we care about the future. We care about where things are going, how they're going to get there, and if we're doing the right things now to get there. But no, a lot of the times I'll pitch a story And it's like, okay, this sounds cool and everything, like, but how does this reflect today? And I'm just like saying, well, what do you mean reflect today? Don't we all have issues where we don't know if we're attracted to someone and we want to, you know, step up and engage in a romantic courtship or something of that nature? Isn't that kind of today? And they're like, yeah, but we need something a bit more focused for today. And I'm just thinking, you want me to basically do something with regards to like the current politics or current sort of social uh, social discourse or something of that nature. Like, yeah, make people really understand that it's reflective of today. It's like, I don't write stuff that's dated. and in that way, like, it's just, why would you want to write a movie that no one's going to want to watch 5 years from now? Or why would you want to
even
sell
by
a
the
movie?
time you know what, to me is one of the most egregious examples. It's actually Birds of Prey, because you can tell that was greenlit in the instant aftermath of Deadpool. Because by the time it came out, there's like such an obvious Deadpool ripoff that it feels like this would have been relevant like 6 months after Deadpool. But like now 3-4 years later, it just feels like it's late to the party, an obvious Deadpool ripoff.
The one I was
so
going
it
to
was
bring
like
up,
outdated by the time it even opened.
The one I was going to bring up wasn't so much based on a existing IP, but still kind of falls in the category. But the Emoji Movie, who the fuck even remembers that thing now?
I never saw it.
They did that because of the Lego Movie.
No, I know, but like, there you go. That's a prime example of trying to take something that's, you know, of the time, of the moment, and it's going to really set that movie in its place in history. It's never going to go beyond it. And, you know, I'm sure like a lot of these other kids movies are the most egregious ones, right? Like, they always pull a lot of the modern kind of isms of the day, and some of them are a little bit smarter with it. And that's where Cobra Kai, I think, is smarter with it, because it doesn't really dwell too much on modern stuff. Yeah, they poke fun at some of the modern social commentary, but they don't really bring up a lot of modern music or movies and stuff. A lot of the stuff they talk about is stuff from like Johnny's era, right? Like AC/DC and stuff like that. You know, so it's music that's kind of timeless already. You know, and a lot of the soundtrack is made up of the same kind of thing as, you know, so
well, they use the current day as like a conflict for what Johnny's trying to do. Like, that's basically what he's, I mean, you can do that. That's great relationship stuff where, you know, he's like, oh, let's put it on, but he's figuring out the internet for the first time. It's like, okay, cool. There's conflict to that. We know what the internet is. We know the internet's probably going to be around for a long time, and it might change forms, like, you know, 50 years from now. But we understand that relationship. We understand, like, you know, a guy bringing themselves or coming into this new part of the world and not wanting to fully understand it, but having to in order to make his business succeed.
Exactly. I mean, and there's a few things that might date the series, but I think they'll play into it and they'll be timeless because they still work.
Yeah.
You know, as you go forward. That's why I brought up Back to the Future as an example. I don't know if Andre has any other ones he wants to bring up, but we're back down to the last 4 points here. Otherwise,
bring them on or move on.
I think we did have a super chat come in here. Naked Fame says, or asks, I should say, what's your favorite DC animated film? Mine is Doom. Kind of partial to I like Flashpoint and the Ninja Turtle versus Batman one. What about you, Script?
I really enjoyed Mask of the Phantasm, Superman Doomsday, Under the Red Hood was really good, and the Dark Knight Returns two-parter was quite. Those are like some.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that one's pretty good too. How about you, Andre?
I haven't seen them all. I got the lists from Script of which ones to watch and which ones not to, but I haven't gotten too far in it yet. I agree with the Dark Knight two-parter. That was pretty amazing. Outside of that, I really liked the Flashpoint Paradox. I thought that one was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then there's one with Darkseid. I think it's like a slightly older one. Beyond that, though, the real classic to me will always be Max Fleischer's Superman, the first one with a mad scientist.
Yeah, that's going old.
It
was on the Sega Mega Drive, so.
Not quite, but there was a Superman a game on the Sega Mega Drive, and it's awesome to this day.
Adam Wolford says the Gotham TV show had the same problem. At one point, they have today cell phones and the police cars are from the 80s, and the detective desks has a typewriter and phone booth, and city looks old. Oh, I'll give you a better example of one. And this is one I remember talking the director, Adam Marcus, about him, or not the director, but the writer in this case. He was the director of Jason Goes to Hell, but he was the writer of the newer Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, the 3D one they did, gosh, what, almost 8-10 years ago now.
Mhm.
The movie was originally supposed to be set in the proper time period, like 20 years off of the original, but the studio wanted it to take place now. So there's a bunch of fuck ups in the movie because of that.
I never understood that decision. To me, that
Yes.
decision was insane. I was
It
like,
was the
why the
studio.
hell is it contemporary? Who thought that was a good idea?
It's
was the
cheaper to
studio.
shoot today than it is
Yep.
to recreate the past.
Which is
Sadly.
dumb because there's really only
this
like
is the
two
but this
scenes
is the
that really-
past in the middle of like Dumpsville, Texas, or wherever
know.
it is. I mean, how expensive can it be? Like, just find a wall.
Well, and Adam was like, my script took place. He goes, my script took place in 1994, but the studio insisted that it took place now, which is dumb because there's only like two scenes that really have anything to do with modernism, and it's all because of cell phones, right? Like if you take those two bits out, because they even fuck up with the, because I even brought up the one shot to him, or like they even fuck up and show the time, the dates on the one paperwork, and it doesn't make any sense, right? And he's like, yeah, I know, because of my script, that's the way it was, but they fucked it up. He is really pissed about how that movie turned out.
Yeah, I don't blame him. That was a mess.
Because it was a good idea that was really executed badly. Because there's really great elements in that film, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but I thought it had potential.
I don't.
Oh no, man! Like a good script can be easily ruined, and a bad script can be easily saved. There's no guarantees in this industry.
Well, I thought it was a good way to kind of extend the story. It was a sequel to the original film, and you know, the idea that he had a family member left over. Well, who else is he going to protect, right? Like,
never mind. I forgot. I confused with another movie. I haven't seen that one then.
Yeah, this is
there's so many of them. I keep like
this is the one.
Confused.
He wrote the one about his niece or whatever that gets her aunt's farm.
Oh, I never saw that one.
Oh, and Leatherface is in the basement.
I didn't see it. I was like thinking of like that. I remember, you know what? I didn't see it specifically because it was contemporary. To me, that was such a big turnoff that I didn't even see it.
There's only like I said, only like 2 or 3 bits that really fuck it up. Other than that, there's still parts of it are there. But like, I mean, he's like, the original script was much bigger because their original budget they had to work with was 10 times what they had in the end, because the guy one of the producers, I guess, really fucked him over, what it sounded like. But yeah, the basic story is it starts off at the end of the first film. But like the city, everybody in the city's coming to get him. And they even have the guy who played the original Leatherface in there as one of the other family members of the Sawyer family.
Judd Hansen, was this made before he died?
Yeah, yeah. And the house gets burnt down, and one of the city folk catches one of the family members trying to escape out back, kills her, but steals the baby. And they raise the baby on their own. And then years later, she finds out who she is. And so she has this farm. Well, she goes to the farm and realizes her uncle's in the basement. But he, you know, and you know, short story long, the spoilers to the end. Well, since she's family, he won't hurt her. But you know, but if somebody fucks with her, guess what happens? So the way it's set up is kind of cool. But once you break into the anachronisms, that's the problem, because you know it picks up off the idea that the original film happened, and then it starts not too long after the original film ended, and then jumps 20 years into the future. Right. So like instead it's actually jumping like 40 years in the future, and you have some chick who's supposed to be playing some between 20 and 30-year-old. She's, you know, it doesn't make any fucking sense. She should be in her 40s, right? Like it's like, yeah, they fucked it all up, but it could have been a good movie. Anyway, we went off on a long tangent there. John Apocalypse says, who'd want to watch Borat 2 years down the line? Well, I did watch it. It wasn't the worst movie in the world. But it wasn't that great. The original joke is kind of gone. What did you guys think? Did you guys see it at all?
I skimmed it.
You mean the original Borat?
No, the Borat 2.
Wait, who'd want to watch Borat 2 years down the line?
Oh, you mean like watch the original 2 years after the fact?
Yeah.
Sorry. That's a better version of the question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I watched the original again right before I watched the new one, and then the original still kind of holds up.
I think that I don't like the implied politics of the new one now. Like, it rubs me a little bit the wrong way. I think it has aged really freaking badly. For that reason, and the second one even more so. But it's actually because I always liked Borat, but I always preferred the original English skits, the ones that
From
were
the Ali G show, right?
Yeah, from the original British Ali G show. I always preferred those ones, but when absolutely no one had any idea who he was, and he was walking around the UK and taking the piss out of the Brits. I thought it was like more fun then.
I agree that
so,
the politics sticks out more now, though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I accidentally missed one in between here, but Darius.
I have the complete list here. So yeah, we missed one in between.
And
the
then
one we missed in between was
Mr. Tickle Trunk. I can't bring it up, but I can see it here. Trivia time. What movie poster did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2's poster parody? I know the answer. Do you guys?
Nope.
I have no clue.
The Breakfast Club.
Oh.
Yeah. The video. You should have said the video cover, actually. Oh, there's that one anyway. Was there another one in between there though?
You mean the one from Adam Wofford? Did we get that one? The Gotham TV show had the same problem. We got that one. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
And Madeline's id said, I recall one of my high school wrestling matches. When I took my opponent down to the mat, my brother shouted from the stands, get him a body bag. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we got that one. Okay. So
then I think I'm going to send you like a list of everything here. Because,
all right, I'll double check it.
See which one we missed.
I'm going to read this then while you're doing that. Do have a long-term plan about where you're taking the story. In the event of success, there will be demand for another season or sequel, and you want to be ready with Cobra Kai. We purposely waited until the very end of the first season to bring back a fan favorite, villainous sensei John Kreese, because we wanted to give fans something to be excited about for season 2. And I remember them talking about this in an interview before, where they said they basically had a 3-season plan, but they knew if they were to get 4 and 5 seasons, they had other ideas to go from there. So I feel like that's where they've been really good at. It feels like each one of these seasons, they seem very satisfying, but yet they're still leaving us room for, growth, right? Like, they're keeping us coming back. So they're doing a very good job of that. I'd say anyway, much like how Deadwood did. 24 was another one that was brought up when we brought this up originally. Great shows that know how to keep you interested, but at the same time, you're almost mad when it ends, right? Like,
yeah, you don't want the story to end. You want it to continue because it's so good.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where it's like. So, like, I don't know if I can even open this thing. What the hell is it? An XLSX?
Yeah, it's an Excel file.
Oh. Okay. You sent it to the most computer illiterate person you know. Thanks.
It's an Excel file.
Microsoft Excel, spreadsheets.
I don't have Microsoft Excel.
I'll resend it.
No, it's processing. I kind of got it here. Hang on.
I'll carve it into a rock and send it by bird post or something.
That would work better, Barney. Okay, let me look here. Go ahead and read the next one then while I'm doing this.
Let's see here. I'll just have to see where
don't assume your audience is going to stick around until the end.
Yeah, this is very solid advice. As important as it is to have a long game, you need to win over the audience very quickly. Otherwise, they will move on to one of the 70 trillion other options they have. I can give 1-star example right here. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
That series came out in the aftermath of the Avengers. It was one of the hottest TV commodities there was. It had so many people watching the first episode, and that episode failed to win anyone over, and it dropped spectacularly, and the series apparently recovered in later seasons, but it didn't help because it never won them over in the first place.
Yeah, people were expecting more S.H.I.E.L.D. related stuff. Like they were expecting Maria Hill to show up. They were expecting Samuel Jackson to be making more appearances, and they never delivered on that. And with the Captain America Winter Soldier taking down the larger entity of S.H.I.E.L.D. and just having these rogue groups of agents on a single ship flying around the world to stop various supervillains and stuff, it just did not. It did not have that flavor of the MCU that would keep people interested. So yeah, it went from I think 7 million viewers to I think it ended with like 1.25 million watchers by the series end, which is a really steep decline.
Yeah, it's an incredible decline. And apparently, it did get better. Everyone kept on telling me that, but I only suffered through like the first season. And when I say suffered through, I do mean that. And then apparently got like better in seasons 4 or 5 or whatever. But no way, I was going to waste another 20 hours going through season 2 and 3 to get there.
Yeah, I think there's some like time travel, like they went to the future, then they went to the past, and then they're jumping. It was quite a mess, actually.
For which one?
And in the end, it didn't matter because now the
Yeah.
whole thing is retconned away anyway.
Pretty much, yep.
So it was all those hours wasted on it was all for naught.
Yeah, and that was an ABC show. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad I dropped it as dropped
Oh,
it
you're
when I
talking
did.
about Shield still?
Yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, that show checked out.
So did Marvel because it's now retroactively removed from canon and continuity.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. Next one is we did miss one super chat here that I can see. Neil, our buddy Neil, sent us a super chat, said, "Forget Batman. I want Green Arrow movie with Black Canary fighting Merlin." Or Marilyn. Sorry.
No, Merlin is the right. Yeah, that would be cool. There is a
Marilyn. I don't know.
Merlin. It's Merlin.
Meryln. Yeah.
Merlin. The character's name's Merlin.
Okay, something to get CW out of my mouth and a good Robin Hood story.
Well, before Batman Begins, I think there was a script called Supermax, and that was about the Green Arrow gets arrested and put into the Supermax jail, and he has to escape and clear his name. And it was a pretty solid script. I don't think they could have properly translated it from the script to the visual medium. It had some, at least at the time it was written, it had a lot of difficult stuff. But that might be a script for Jesse Miller and the Crow's Nest to take a look at. Because it's never getting made. I know that for sure.
Rod Thunder, or should I say, sorry.
Now you have to do it right.
Rod Thunderheart says, "Hail Andre Tommen, script doctor. Yeah, I have to agree with the previous super chat over Creed. I didn't like Rocky beatdown and getting cancer. Yeah, but he beats it. So
yeah,
and again,
so great success. So there's that. But I do see where you're coming from.
No, I get it. Yeah, I do prefer Creed 2 much better than Creed. Like Creed was like, I was like, it's all right, but I did.
And the spin-off movie I still want is the Drago family, because that was the most interesting thing about that. I mean, talking about like giving new characters and stuff, I want to see the continued adventures of Drago and his son. I mean, there's the Cobra Kai series.
I still think it's interesting that Rocky is not going to be in Creed 3.
That's weird.
I'm curious. I wonder if he's going to be like he's over in Russia.
I sincerely hope so.
Because Stallone has been talking about another quote-unquote Rocky movie for a while now. I wonder if that's what it'll be, is more of a drag, like a spin-off kind of thing again. Do respect and engage your fandom. The best part about working on a famous franchise is that there's a built-in fan base already. Do what you can to turn that fan base into a community. Get them hyped up, show them you listen, and encourage their creativity and passion. Should I just go on to the next one, or do anybody want to comment on that?
I think that's a really, really good point that I wish that many would take to heart. But before we go on, Destiny Captain also points out in terms of like the difficulty of going back in time with adding like dressing and stuff to pull off the illusion. As a person that lives in West Texas, the look of Texas in 1985 and 1995 is not that different. Cell phones, cars, and music, less so in the rural towns. That's what I mean as well. I mean, there are so many places where you have like that it only takes like a minimum of changes to put something 10, 20, even 30, 40, 50 years back in time. I mean, like, for instance, if you go back to Norwegian countryside, go to some of the valleys that God forgot, and it looks pretty much the same now in 2021 as it did in 1971.
Well, I remember a lot of movies, they would, especially in the 80s and 90s, they would, up until the internet age came in anyway, they would specifically like try to make the time ambiguous. right? Like they would never like try to set it necessarily in any specific time, because for a while there, movies had like a 3-4 year shelf life, right? You had the initial run, the video and cable run, and then you showed it on TV, and then it would have the syndicated TV run, right? Like, so it had like this lifespan where they kind of would treat a movie like a new movie for about 4 or 5 years. At least when I was growing up from memory. It was just more in recent years that it felt like, oh, that movie's 6 months old already. It's old. It's like, in what world? Like, I remember
We're living in the world of short attention spans. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
And I still think it's like the really cool when movies use that to the best effect, have like a vague sense of when they take place, but then use that as a plot device later on. A star example on that is Mel Gibson's Apocalypto, which is one of my personal all-time favorite movies, which takes place in South America during the Maya era. But exactly when is it? Is it like 600 years ago? Is it 800 years ago? Is it 1500 years ago? That we don't know, and that's the
well, I wasn't going to that extent, but I mean,
but it's the principle, right? Like it's something that you can do with like movies where like the time frame matters.
I guess a random point would be like, even though the movie isn't as timeless now, I mean, I remember seeing a lot of movies like, like Smokey and the Bandit and stuff like that in like 1983, 84 on television. They still felt brand new. Like they didn't feel dated yet. It just felt like things they kept longer. It felt like,
but honestly, I think it's reversed now in terms of that. I think that we have reached a before and after in terms of things being dated, and to me, that's like before and after widescreen and high definition. Because if you look at most things filmed in 2001, 2002. And for movies, like even in the late 90s and stuff, they look pretty much the same as if it had been filmed today. And that's like a 20-year difference, right? Or like 20-plus year difference. The 20-plus years between like the 80s and 60s, you can tell such a clear difference between a movie made in the 60s and the 80s. And likewise, 70s and 80s. But in the same time span, now back to the early 2000s, late 90s, you really can tell a difference. Like, for instance,
I will say, because I've been watching a lot more 90s.
Yeah, of course, there are some details. But like, for instance, I recently rewatched the Mask of Zorro, which is from 1998.
Yeah.
And that's then a movie which isn't set in 1998. Rather, it's like set in like 1880, something like that. I don't recall.
Yeah, like about 20 years right now. For the 19th.
Yeah. But the point with that then is that it's a movie where they have like dressed it to look like it took place in the late 1800s. And if you had filmed that movie today, it would have looked exactly the same. Like, there's no way to tell if that movie was filmed, other than like on the actors and stuff. But and some of the jokes, wouldn't fly today. But like from a technical perspective,
that's where I might argue to a point, and I'm going to bring that up here when we get to Yellow Flashes. But I want to get this one first. Dumb and Dumber still feels the same to me, says Redline 7. Yeah, but Dumb and Dumber would be over in 10 minutes now, because all he would do is just call her on her cell phone and tell her if she forgot her fucking.
Yeah.
It wouldn't last long.
Yeah, but he's too dumb for that.
He is too dumb for that. Yellow Flash says older movies look better than new movies in 4K. There's a reason for this, and I'm glad you brought up the technical aspect, Andre. I agree with you.
And we have a video planned on that, actually.
Up to a point, I agree with you, because once they started switching over to digital, to me, movies don't feel and look the same as they do on film. I know it's a real stupid, subtle argument, but Tarantino is right. Okay.
No, he's right. Yeah.
He's
Yellow Flash.
Right.
This is why they look better, because films that are done on film look and feel richer and realer and have a more tangible feeling to them than anything that's been done on digital. Not only that, a lot of the films that are done in modern age have been washed out with tons of filters, and my God, they look horrible. And the other problem is a large portion of movies up until recently that have been done between what 2010 till now have been done in a 2K master. So that means they're up converting the master for a 4K movie. So you're really not even getting a true 4K presentation.
Not only that, you're not also doing a digital white balance as opposed to the old school day where you'd actually have to hold up a white sheet or panel and have the camera and adjust the camera to that in order to get a clean light print with what you're filming. And then when you get into the editing process, you can mess around with it to create different shadows, different color temperatures, and all that other stuff. With digital right now, you do that digitally, and if it's screwed up, you don't find out until you get it to your dailies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is also why a lot of digital effects look like shit on 4K movies, because they're rendered out in 2K.
Yeah, that's
or not even 2K in some cases.
And it's so difficult to even see like a proper film in cinema right now because they've replaced all the projectors with
they're all digital
projectors.
I think there's only a handful of cinemas in the US that still show film, which is strange, but Quentin Tarantino, I think, owns one of them.
Yep, he owns the Beverly Center, right? Or the Beverly Film.
Yep, still shows 70 millimeter, I think, still, and stuff like that. But yeah, very rare, very rare. Yeah, that's why I'm not real big on going to like revival screenings. Like, I like that they're there, but I know I'm basically going to see the same thing that my Blu-ray. It's kind of pointless. When I got an 82-inch screen, it's kind of like, Then Diego sent us 10 Peruvian souls. Thank you so much for that. Says, ironic how many actual sports stars end up beat down and sick with chronic disease. What Rocky went through saddened me, but I didn't feel out there because of that. Are you basically saying you didn't mind that they did that in the movie?
Yeah, no, because it happens in reality. I mean, there's quite a lot of professional athletes that, for various reasons, get really bad health problems later on in life. I mean, depending on the sport, and you put yourself through a whole hell of a lot of hassle and trouble. So yeah, quite a lot of athletes do suffer greatly later in life for it. And sent us a super sticker, so thanks so much for that. And Six has a great comment here. We've had to turn ourselves into a community because a lot of our fandoms would rather divide us. And yeah, that's exactly the point of this article.
I say that brings us to our last point perfectly. Don't argue with the fans. There's nothing more futile than trying to convince fans who didn't like something that they are wrong. If there is division in the fan base, let the fans argue amongst themselves. That is part of the fun. That, of course, brings us to the most important point of all. And we've seen this time and time again. And this is the thing that we hit on most of all. Whether you're a creative, an actor, a producer, shut the fuck up. There's nothing you can say that's going to help you right now. And Mangold is one of the prime examples.
Yeah. I mean, we call Matt Kadish the Mangold Slayer, and there's a reason for that.
I mean...
And Mangold walked straight into that one, and he will never, ever live it down.
Right, because, I mean, the biggest part of the problem is, and this goes back to every one of these, is once you do this, you've made it to where your movie has to be the best ever, right? Because I said this point, and I think I'm right on this. Like, and go ahead and disagree with me if you want to, but I say that going into this, all his Indiana Jones movie had to do was be better than the Crystal Skull. That's it. That's all it had to do. Didn't have to be as good as the originals, just had to be better than the Crystal Skull. And everybody been like, oh, thank God, at least the last one wasn't horrible. Now, on the other hand, he's put himself in a position where those movies have to be as good as the originals, or it's just everybody's going to treat it like the Crystal Skull.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I think that's kind of a great point that goes along with each and every one of these guys who have done this before, from Paul Feig to, Ryan Johnson to Pablo Hidalgo to, Brie Larson, you name them. Anybody who's ever come out and tried to attack a fandom or a group of people, especially over movies, needs to get their fucking head examined. Kevin Smith Shut up. Just shut up. I would love, right now, I would be in such fucking heaven seeing all the shit that's coming out of Clerks 3, but you fucked that up for me. And this is the reason why, because you argued with fans and you've made me look at you like a big fucking baby who can't deal with any kind of criticism. You know what? We get criticism every single day here on and like I brought it up at the beginning of the show. It's like, even though the person was completely off base, I shouldn't have engaged with them probably, but at the same time, I was just like, I didn't really call him names though, did I? Like I didn't call him stupid. I didn't call him an asshole. I didn't say he was wrong per se. I did correct him on one thing and he didn't want to accept that. So I was like, okay, whatever, like end of discussion. This guy's not, I'm not going to win with this. Right. So like in most cases, you're better off just disengaging. And that's what most of these people should do, is just disengage. When you realize you're not going to win, or there's nothing you can say that's going to make this person, change their mind, in which case you're never going to change a fan's mind once they feel a certain way about something. I think that's the one thing that most of these creatives need to understand. Isn't that right, Script? I mean, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think that they're never, nothing any of them are really ever going to say is going to make a difference.
Well, yeah, the goal is not to try and change minds. It's just, put something out there and hopefully they respond to it with as much reverence as you had making it. And if they don't, well, you take the criticism, you see if that is valid or not, because an objective person will understand the difference between the two. And then you take those notes and you apply them to the next thing you're going to make, and hopefully it does better. And hopefully you achieve that goal. And that's just the way it is. The worst thing you can ever do is try to force someone to like something they don't. Or try to attack them for not liking what you put out.
Exactly. Like usually people say, oh, Tom sucks, I just leave it alone. Like, I mean, like I said, the one I engaged in earlier, I corrected them because they're like, oh, Midnight's Edge has had a hate boner for the MCU since Endgame. I'm like, well, that's not true. And then when I corrected them and told them what we've liked since then, well, then that's when they came back with, well, you didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, then you're not a true fan. At that point, I just did. What else can I say? What else can I say? There's nothing, because this guy's never going to like us. So there's no point in me arguing with him, right? And that's the way these people need to think of this. Is like, that fan is already made up his mind about The Last Jedi. Why is Ryan Johnson out there trying to change their mind or trying to prove that they're wrong in some way?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that would be like the most important thing. Like, try to do everything you can to revere the source material, respect the fans who are what made the property a property in the first place. And you can't win anyone over, and those that you can't win over, you can just simply say your piece. This is what you try to do, and there's no point in debating any further. And if you really messed up, simply own it and move on. Try to do better next time, as exactly
like Joel
as Script said.
Yeah, our go-to example with that.
With that though, we also have like some minor Indiana Jones updates that I put in the private chat here. But I have to be off here, so
I'm gonna grab these last few super chats, and then we'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can hold the fort in the meantime, because I just have to be off here. So yeah, we speak later. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Take care.
Last Millennial sends in $9.99, says, regarding the final product, would the ideal thing to do with the movie is shoot it in master in 4K and show it in the theater with film projectors? Would that be the best movie experience?
Be incredibly expensive.
Yeah, see, that's the thing.
Film is expensive to make. Not many companies still make film anymore. A lot, like the Kodak had a couple of really big production factories in North America. Most of them are done, are shut down and abandoned. Fujifilm, same thing. Canon doesn't do much anymore. So it's very expensive now to shoot on film. Yeah. And you can only usually shoot in 10-minute increments. And with digital, you don't have to worry about that.
There's a lot more of that. Yeah, the shooting,
just lights, like, just scraping the surface right now.
Editing, yeah, like all that. And then as far as the output, it's kind of like doing a digital master and then putting it out on record. I mean, for some people, they'll think they're getting something special, but to anybody who knows any better, then it's kind of pointless. You might as well just buy the CD. So in this case, they're already kind of doing this, which is basically they're mastering movies. They're shooting them now in anywhere from 6 to 5K in some cases, mastering them down in 4K. And then some theaters are able to project it in 4K. The older ones still are at 2K projectors. But yeah, that's your other problem is most theaters are already transitioned over to digital. So you'd only have a handful of theaters that could even show them in film.
And there's not many projectionists of the old projector style these days.
Yeah. So yeah, ideally at this point, it would be if, like you said, mastering it in 4K, but projecting it with a 4K digital projector that they weren't under cranking. And I use that term loosely because it's not really a crank. It was like they turned down the lens on it or whatever and shit. So it's not so bright. So you're basically getting cheated. That's the thing is a lot of theaters are real shitty about how they don't know how to do anything with these projectors. They don't understand them. I don't think every single time I went to this one theater, they fucked up the presentation somehow, some way, especially 3D movies. I think the best thing we can hope for is that all the theaters will get upgraded with 4K projectors at some point, and then at that point things will kind of even out. But no, too expensive. I don't see it happening, and it really wouldn't benefit us in any way. I don't think it would make the films look any better. If it was shot in film originally, yes. But like Script said, that's almost impossible unless you're Quentin Tarantino or Nolan or somebody like that.
Well, the other part too is like if you take a look at, say, you want to shoot a low budget film, you're probably looking, and it's like going to be a 2-hour film and maybe a 45-day to 70-day shoot. You're still looking at maybe about 70 million just on film and the cameras and all that other stuff. Like it's going to be very, very pricey. Because with less companies making film at the frequency that they used to, it's now becoming a rarity, and it's scarce, and it's going to become more expensive to get your hands on.
Yep. So although that would be kind of cool if we had a film revolution, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Naked Fame says they attack the fans from their $1 million homes and fillet themselves to how woke they are. The woke aren't the majority; they're just louder. Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Well, except for the $1 million home thing, most actors don't have $1 million homes. Most of them rent. Some of them have $20,000 homes in bad neighborhoods.
Unfortunately, some of the most
everybody who works in town is a millionaire.
But you got to give them this caveat, Script. Most of the ones who have been shooting their mouth off are those ones.
The most recent one there, she's been acting 10 years. I don't think her home's worth more than $100,000.
Well, that one, yeah, but like everyone from like Ellen to certain other ones.
Like if you're talking about someone that is actually a household name, they probably got some decent savings and property.
Master Clockwork says, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. The facts of life.
Mm-hmm.
I like that show. And Popcorn Planet, hey, how you doing? Says he loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. That's right. You got to see it, didn't you, Andy?
Awesome.
Are you back yet, or are you still out in Vegas? I know I want to see it pretty bad, and since you and a few other people have been saying good things about it, I cannot wait. Yeah, and I know there's some arguments to be made, Bertrand, Kurt Russell, but I was just trying to make kind of a quick streamlined example kind of thing. Douglas Nelson, how you doing, buddy? Says no one has defended Last Jedi as a film. They only attacked its critics. That's kind of a point. I know Rian Johnson has tried to defend The Last Jedi a few times.
I'm sure there's someone out there that has some sort of weird long moving goalpost moving analysis of able to defend The Last Jedi.
Kind of like an anti-Mauler video of why it's the greatest movie ever made.
Sure, why not?
That 5 people watched.
Listen, there's always something to be learned from those types of weird opinions.
Well, technically, I mean, look-wise, it's considering it was... did they shoot the... Because I know they didn't shoot... I think they shot The Force Awakens on film.
I think so, yeah.
But I don't know...
The Last Jedi, I think, was shot on like maybe a Genesis or.
I was gonna say, I think that one was done digitally, which I was kind of impressed by how well they made it look. That's the only thing I will give that film, is that they made it looked good, for what it was. Fluffy Panda says, Andre, my man, also watched Mask of Zorro. Sorry he's not here, and I didn't get this for you while he was here. I actually just got it in 4K. I've never seen the film, so I plan on watching it for the first time.
You've never seen The Mask of Zorro?
Nope, never seen it.
Oh, you're going to love it.
Okay, we already got that one, so we're caught up on those. Let me double check and make sure we didn't get any more in the meantime. Because yeah, if you're back, Andy, I don't know if you can really talk about Ghostbusters. I'd pull you on real quick to talk about it, but hung over from Vegas, so yeah, we'll talk to you later
And
about
recover,
it. Then.
sir. Recover.
Yeah, go ahead and recover. And I don't think you can really talk about it anyway. So I'm assuming you guys had to sign something, and because there hasn't been any real like reviews out there, so I'm assuming you can just give like a minor reaction.
He's gonna see it again, probably. That's what it'll be.
Yeah, well, I hope it's good. I really do. I've been hearing so many great things about it. Bryant Barth asks, how come they are getting rid of film for digital? What's so special for digital? It's not so much that it's special, but going
Just
back
cheaper.
to what we were just saying, yeah, cheaper, ease of access, less lighting, get more cameras for the price, all that kind of stuff. You can shoot endlessly. You don't have to worry about, getting it in one or two takes. There's all kinds of reasons into that. Plus, it's easier for editing, for transferring to editing.
There's no development costs. Yeah,
exactly.
like
I was just going to say, you used to
process.
have to wait for dailies when you used to do this kind of stuff. Now you can just see them right away.
Yeah, like you'd run your day, you'd print it, which is basically your development, and then you'd have to get it scanned. And if you weren't shooting in the same country, you then have to transmit those dailies via satellite back to California to whatever studio is there. No, it's ridiculous. Like today, you can just kind of do it over a Dropbox.
Just the entire branch of things you have to do.
Yeah, it slims things down. But yeah, at the same time, you kind of lose a little bit of the magic because film can still hold more information than a digital shot of film. And but they're getting close. Like digital is probably, I would say, 25 years before it actually manages to equal film. Just at the
I'd
rate that they're
actually be a
going.
little bit more optimistic and say less. I mean,
I hope so. Yeah.
They're getting really good with some of these, like the red cameras and the ones that they're using to shoot in 6 and 8K and stuff. And again, that's just kind of, I don't think TV, like I think 4K TV is about as far as we're going. Maybe 8K, but I doubt they'll go, because even at that point, it's, unless you got a really big TV, it's not going to make a difference. So I think that they've come to a point where that's about where they'll cut it off. Because I mean, once you shoot it just a little bit above, because that's what they're doing now with a lot of the 4K masters, is like they're actually mastering them in like 6 or 8K, and then they're down converting that to 4K, which makes it even better. Since they learned that, if you take a 4K master and down convert that to 1080p, it looks amazing.
Great. Yeah.
So now they're figuring, because I think the Godfather films were mastered in 6K. And I think the Star Wars films also were, when George did. I think they both of them did all their movies at once, because now they're all coming out in a clump. If you've noticed, him and Francis, I wouldn't be surprised. Daniel says, with $20, truly appreciate you guys. A great mix of intelligent conversation, professional knowledge, and personal investment in topics. Question for script: what percentage of bad creatives do you attribute to laziness versus malice?
Well, if they're a bad creative, it'd be 100%. But if you're talking about like overall with regards to the industry, it's really kind of fascinating, because for television, you have a very narrow window to write, and also an even shorter window to for production itself. It's about 5 to 7 days to shoot an episode of like an hour-long drama. And if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter how it's solved, just that it's solved, and they can make their day. So that's why you can get some really messed up things happening in a television show that you like, where it's like, well, why did they do this decision? Or why is this character who's never spoken about this subject speaking about it now? It's like something happened on set, and either the showrunner or that writer, or if they weren't available for whatever reason, they call in me, and we have to fix what happened so that we can make the day and make the story kind of work better than not doing it at all. So there's that issue. That's usually out of panic. That's usually out of desperation. And then you have the parts where people just don't care. They have an agenda, and I would say the agenda people are less than 10%. But the thing is, they get the work because it's the popular talking point within the industry. So it feels like we're getting oversaturated. But I cannot stress how many more writers there are out in Hollywood that you have never heard of, that do not give any thought with regards to political topics or agenda or anything of that nature. And the reason you're not hearing about them is precisely because of that. Because they don't care about it, they're probably not getting the jobs that are the higher profile ones. If they are getting work and they are getting movies made, they're not being heavily advertised as you'd like. I mean, I mentioned this a couple of times already. Turner and Hooch on Disney Plus, very unwoke show, very kind of dated in its style, but it's new. Nobody's talking about it, but it's actually kind of charming and innocent and good. And it's written by Matt Nix, who did Burn Notice, who I know has a huge fan base for that show. But you'll never see it trending on social media, and you don't have any of the trades talking about it. And yet it's an okay thing. It does nothing to ruin the original film either at all. It actually honors it. It follows kind of the 12 rules that we just read over now for Cobra Kai. But has anyone put a 1 in the chat if you heard of that series and watched it, and a 2 if you haven't heard it at all. So it's there. So yeah, it's a very complicated industry. It's a lot of relationships. People say it's a small town, but in truth, it's actually huge because there's a lot more people in it than you think.
And I don't see too much stuff being made out of malice. Right?
Yeah, that's the other part too. You don't really see. I don't think the malice is really intentional. It's more like an after effect where they think, oh, this is a good idea. It's hitting all these talking points. It's contemporary. It's doing the things we want it to do. And then when people don't like it, that's when they kind of double down on it, and we get that malice approach.
I would say it's more ignorance than malice, or it's
stubbornness,
misappropriated intent. Like something that could be considered malice is like what they've done with like Star Trek, for instance. I don't think anybody had any malice involved. Like I keep telling people, is like Kurtzman and JJ did exactly what Paramount told them to do.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is like, it's not like there was any malice involved to destroy the old Trek so much as this, they wanted to make it hip and new. And through that, it did kind of come off as a malice.
Paramount said, hey, we want Star Trek to be the next big
but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
They want Star Trek to be the next big Star Wars thing. Yeah, a lot of twos. JJ wanted to do that, but also he wanted, what Lucas had. He wanted a piece of the merchandising rights. And after whatever deal they negotiated, they got what they got. And while the popular talking point was that, Star Trek 09 was this great thing, movie and stuff, it did not deliver in the way that they wanted. Paramount saw, oh man, we spent this much money and only made this much back. And the accountants knew. I was dating one of them at the time, but they still kept going for it because, again, the reputation of the creators superseded the quality of the brand, and that's actually another detrimental thing that can happen with the industry. And we're seeing it quite profoundly over the last 5 years. It's where the stars and the directors are more important than the brand, and as opposed to being shepherds. And as a result, we get stuff we just don't like. Like, more people talk about Cobra Kai itself than they do about the showrunners and the cast. It's Cobra Kai is what leads that brand to that show more so than
and how diverse it is and stuff. Nobody really brings that up so much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Preston Bruno says Mask of Zorro equals Batman Beyond. I've heard that before.
Yes.
So I'll tell you if I think the same thing after I see it. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, I really appreciate your guest analysis and speculation, even though I'm mostly here for the funny voices and fart jokes. Well, thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. And, Script isn't so much as a guest as our Canadian stepchild. He's just
I'll take that.
He's always here. Last Millennial says, from what you say, would Avengers movie shot in 6K mastered on 4K, would that look amazing, or how would that appear? Yeah, that would look pretty good. In fact, I think the last 2 Avenger movies were actually mastered in 2K, to be honest with you, from what I remember hearing. Now, the last Star Wars movie is one of the first movies that I know was shot in like 6K and mastered in 4K. So the 4K Blu-ray is true 4K. There's only been a few movies in recent years that have been full-fledged 4K. Trying to think of the other couple. There's websites you can go to that have reference as far as what they were mastered in, so you can kind of make sure when you're going out and purchasing your movies, you can kind of plan accordingly. But there is some great 2K masters on 4K Blu-ray, the HDR makes a big difference. Like Ford versus Ferrari is one that I can think of that was mastered in 2K, but between the HDR and stuff like that, it does the 4K version is a bit better. But other than that, like if it's a movie that has a lot of digital in it and stuff like that in the last few years, maybe the last Jurassic World movie was mastered in 4K, but even some of the earlier Jurassic Park movies don't look that great because for some stupid reason, the first one and the third movie are mastered in 4K from the film, but the second film comes from a 2K digital master. Lost World does. Don't ask me why. So yeah, there's just randomness to some of these masters. So, but if you're ever questioning what you're getting, there's websites out there. Just type in 4K digital master source or something like that, and it should pop up. Maybe if I find a website, I'll throw Andre the link and he can throw it in the description for you guys after the fact here. But yeah, it's kind of a wonky hit and miss. It all depends on how well it's mastered and all that kind of stuff. But there is at least a handful of films now that have been done in better than 4K or whatever as far as a master, and then have been brought out in 4K, but not very many. And now everybody's drunk because if you play the 4K drinking game, I've brought it up so many times that you're
going to
dead.
have liver poisoning.
Congratulations, you're dead. Adam Wolford says, I just saw a post on Facebook about the Eternals, said discount Dune. Also saw one where it I want to see Dune. Mom, we have Dune at home. Eternals. Oh, was there a screening for Eternals?
I didn't hear of anything.
I didn't hear of it. That's very plausible, but I would think if they're going to show anything at CinemaCon, it would probably just be Shang-Chi since it comes out this week. But I mean, it's not like the Eternals isn't done. It's the first I've heard about it if there has been, but I'm not sure unless they're just meme jokes. I'm not so sure why there would be comparisons unless somebody's actually seen it. I know they did show some Dune footage along with the Batman footage, though, and it got pretty good response from what I was seeing, but nothing really more interesting to talk about than the Batman. But Daniel says, fantastic answer to the question. Thanks. Wow, you didn't have to send in a super chat for that, but thank you. We appreciate that. Last Millennial says, then why don't they do more 4K mastered movies? Money. Costs a lot of money. You're basically rendering out a file that's 4 times the size of what they're used to. So between just the production facilities to do that, to render out the special effects in that are extremely time consuming, and you need a lot of data and processors and all that stuff to do. It's mostly just because of the size of the files and the money aspect, because it costs for first of all just to do a classic film in 4K. I think Robert Meyer Burnett said it cost script like somewhere in the $25,000 range or more.
I would think at least.
And then to do an HDR is even more, is like another 10 grand on top of that or something like that. So it's not a cheap endeavor to do an older film in 2K. And then as far as like just doing all that stuff, like I said, you got to figure all your special effects artists are doing all the special effects at high 4K. And so they have to have computers that can handle all that rendering capability. It's a pretty big undertaking for a computer yet until the technology catches up. I mean, surely at one point, like I think Willie said, about 10 years. Going off
that's
of
optimistic.
Our prediction. And that's about where I'm at, though. I think we've been trucking along pretty quickly, and like
because I remember in 2007 they were thinking 10 years they would be able to surpass film, and I'm like, no, it's going to take a long time.
We did have a bit of a hiccup. Like it seemed like we were on this fast track, and then all of a sudden it kind of went slowed down, and then the last year or so hasn't helped, I'm sure, with technology and stuff like that. But I think 15 years would be more than optimistic. I mean, because we're pretty close now. It's just the more or less being able to afford to put out a movie at that size and all that kind of stuff, especially if it's a very special effects heavy film. So,
yeah, I mean, digital composites in 4K takes a long time. Even with my compressor for my own videos, the raw footage there is is 6K on my editing software, and I can export it in a compressor at 4K. Even though they're just basic cartoons and stills images. It's the data quality packet is 4K, and I've matched it up with other stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, it kind of matches on. But does YouTube do it properly when they process it? I don't know. But
what, they're 4K? Yeah, it's pretty low.
Yeah, I don't think their YouTube's 4K is really 4K.
It is, but it isn't. It's kind of
something's off with it.
Well, it's compressed. Winso Max, if I'm saying that right. Winso Max. What about The Thing 1982? Wasn't that shot in 70 millimeter? Has that had a good release? Okay. I'd have to look and see if it was shot on 70 millimeter. My guess is no, it wasn't.
I thought 35, but
I'd say most movies back then were shot on 35, and then they just do blow ups for 70 millimeter. And the only times they would use 70 millimeter would be for special effects shots. I think Quentin Tarantino is the only director in recent years, and he's really shot.
Bryan Singer did 70, I think, for Superman Returns.
Did he?
I think so. I remember him talking about it because he calls it the ribbon, because that's what directors called it back then, because it's this big, thick.
Right.
Film.
Well, yeah, because I couldn't remember. I thought he did. Well, if he did in IMAX, it would have been 70 millimeter. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of movies that have been shot in 70 millimeter, but I'm sure you could find out which ones are. But yeah, I don't think it was, but it does have a 4K Blu-ray coming, and I've heard good things about it. So, if it was, I'm impressed. I can't believe they did that, especially for a quasi horror John Carpenter film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and The Thing is coming soon. Yes, it is. And Doggy, yeah, Sadie's barking at the mailman or the UPS guy or something out here. But yeah, so with that, I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Sure.
Close Encounters was shot in 70 millimeter. That I'm not surprised. I know the effects were anyway. And there you go. Natasha has a list. Thank you so much. And with that, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Was there anything else you think we should talk about, script or?
No, I think we're.
There was this Indiana Jones news we totally fucking forgot.
Oh, right. That's still filming or not filming now?
It's actually okay. We'll do this real quick because this is really kind of like, oh, okay.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, I guess.
Indiana Jones 5 is still not filming according to the Park Place. I've never heard of this website before, but
neither have I.
According to them, they're still shut down. Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford has been sighted out wandering around in Britain, but according to rumors, they have shut down production until September still. So that's not good, but we'll see how that rolls.
So till Wednesday, because that's September.
Yeah, but well, it goes with what we heard before, though, and I think what Grace Randolph and some other people were reporting. So then Brett Cohen sent us a super sticker. Thank you so much for that. I can't see what it is. Let me bring it up.
A dog kind of doing a head bow.
Yeah, I heard myself. Fuck off. Get off my train. All right. With that, I think it's time we put a wrap on this. You want some koalas in the rain?
Sure.
Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given.
Don't forget toxic femininity tonight, guys. Take care, everybody.
Koalas in the rain.